You ever walk into a room thinking you're about to have a serious talk with your wife, only to find out you were the main course on the betrayal buffet? That was me on a Thursday night in April. Ashley had insisted we meet for dinner. Just the two of us, Logan. We need to talk, she'd said in that tone women use when they already know something you don't. I showed up in a collared shirt, because when your wife says serious talk, you don't risk showing up in your gym hoodie. The restaurant was one of those upscale spots with more wine bottles than entrees, the kind where the waiter whispers the menu like he's confessing state secrets. And there he was, Chase Donovan, the colleague Ashley had been mentioning far too often. He sat at our table already, leaning back like he owned the place, that smug grin plastered across his face. The kind of grin that makes you want to Google, how much jail time for one well-placed punch. Ashley smiled sweetly when I sat down. Logan, she said, motioning between us. You've heard me talk about Chase. Oh, I've heard, I replied. My voice came out calm, but my fists were already tightening under the table. Chase leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine like we were in some Wild West standoff. I'll make this simple, he said smoothly. You've got two options, Logan. Leave quietly, or face me like a man. Ashley didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't even blink. She just sat there with that faint smile that said, let's see how you handle this one, husband. I chuckled, low and slow. You want your teeth whole? I asked, or in pieces? That wiped the grin right off his face. I didn't raise my voice, didn't throw a fit, but I leaned back, folded my arms, and said, let's not pretend, Chase. You didn't come here to win Ashley. You came here to see if I'd crawl. But newsflash, if you two thought I'd play the role of the blind husband, you've seriously underestimated me. Ashley shifted uncomfortably. Logan, don't be dramatic. Dramatic? I cut her off. Ashley, you invited me here to watch me lose. But here's the thing. I don't lose. I adapt. Chase tried to look confident, but I noticed his hand twitch under the table. I stood up slowly, put a 50 on the table for the untouched glass of water I ordered, and looked at Ashley one last time. You wanted a show tonight, I said. But the curtain hasn't even risen yet. Then I walked out. Calm, quiet, but with a storm brewing under my skin. Because they had no idea I'd already been one step ahead of them. Here's the funny thing about betrayal. The people doing it always assume you're clueless. They forget some of us are patient, observant, the kind of men who'd rather watch a trap tighten than waste energy shouting into the void. See, Ashley thought I was still the faithful husband who never noticed when she suddenly started wearing perfume I hadn't bought, or when her phone magically became part of her hand every night after 9 p.m. But she was wrong. I'd noticed everything. 3 weeks earlier, I'd already planted a quiet insurance policy. Nothing illegal, nothing messy, just a little device tucked neatly into the vent of her car. A GPS tracker, $30 on Amazon and worth every penny. That's how I knew she wasn't at yoga on Tuesday nights. That's how I knew Chase drove a black Audi with a dented passenger side door. And that's how I knew tonight's dinner was less a surprise and more a performance she'd been rehearsing for weeks. When I walked out of that restaurant, I didn't head home. I went to my office, poured myself a glass of bourbon, and opened my laptop. The tracker showed me Chase's car parked outside an apartment complex on the west side. Apartment 3B. Cute. At 11:17 p.m., sure enough, Ashley's car pinged right beside it. I laughed quietly into my glass. Predictable as sunrise. The next morning, she came home at 7:30, hair a little too perfect for someone who'd supposedly spent the night at her sister's. She set her purse down like nothing had happened. You're up early, she said, all casual. I smiled. Yeah, couldn't sleep. She gave me a look, the kind wives give when they're testing the waters. You're not mad about last night, are you? Mad? I tilted my head. Why would I be mad? You just introduced me to your work buddy. What could possibly be upsetting about that? She studied me for a moment, searching my face for cracks. I gave her none, just a calm, steady smile. Inside, I was already pulling strings she didn't know existed. Because Ashley thought she was the chess master. But the truth? She was just a pawn on my board. If Ashley thought she was playing chess, I'd just moved my queen while she was still arguing over which direction the knight could move. The first step in any good revenge isn't confrontation. It's silence. Silence unnerves people more than shouting ever could. And that week, I went quieter than a ghost in our own house. I stopped asking where she was going. Stopped checking in. Stopped reacting. And she hated it. By Thursday, she was fishing for tension. "You're being weird," she said over dinner, stabbing her salad like it insulted her. "Weird?" I raised an eyebrow. "No, just observant." Her fork paused midair. "Observant about what?" I shrugged, sipping my water. "Oh, little things. Like the way your car keeps racking up miles without a trip to the grocery store. Or how Chase's cologne seems to travel with you, even though I don't remember seeing a bottle of it in this house." Her smile faltered. "You're imagining things." "Maybe." I set my glass down. "But the thing about me, Ashley, I don't imagine twice." She didn't answer, just pushed lettuce around her plate, pretending it wasn't wilting in front of her. That night, she went to bed early, claimed she was exhausted. I waited until I heard her breathing even out, then slipped into the office. On my desk sat a manila folder. Inside it, every screenshot, every GPS ping, every little breadcrumb I'd collected these past few weeks. I wasn't ready to use it. Not yet. No, timing was everything. But I'll tell you this. Nothing feels quite like holding evidence that could flip someone's entire world upside down in an instant. And while Ashley slept soundly in our bed, thinking she was the clever one, I sat there smiling, because the storm she thought she was controlling was already mine to unleash. You ever watch someone try to keep a tower of lies standing while the wind starts to blow? That was Ashley the following week, all smiles on the outside, but her hands were trembling just enough to give her away. It started small. On Monday, I forgot to ask how her weekend was. Normally, she'd breeze through the door, drop her purse, and launch into a 15-minute highlight reel about brunches and shopping trips. This time, she waited. She lingered by the kitchen island like a news anchor waiting for the cue. "So," she said finally, sliding her phone onto the counter face down. "How was your day?" I didn't even look up from the paper. "Peaceful." That one word rattled her. I could see it. She expected a hint of tension, a spark of suspicion, maybe even the old routine where I pretended not to notice the perfume that wasn't mine. Instead, I gave her nothing. And nothing is terrifying when you're guilty. The text slip. By Wednesday, the cracks were spreading. She'd started guarding her phone like it contained the nuclear codes. She took it into the bathroom with her, into the shower, even into the garage when she went to grab something from the car. That night, I caught a glimpse. A notification lit up the screen as she was turning it over. One word, "tonight?" She froze. I didn't say a thing, just tilted my head like I hadn't seen it and went back to folding laundry. "Something wrong?" she asked, her tone too casual. "Nope," I replied, setting a shirt neatly into the basket. "Just admiring how efficient you are with your time." Her lips pressed into a thin line. That night, she tossed and turned until 2 a.m. while I slept like a baby. The dinner party. Friday rolled around, and Ashley decided to throw a dinner party. Out of the blue. No birthday, no anniversary, just an excuse to fill the house with laughter that could drown out the silence between us. Chase was there, of course. He wore a jacket that screamed I own 3 yachts, but only actually afford the payments on one. The man couldn't stop grinning, like he was auditioning for the role of future husband number 2. I played the part of gracious host. Opened wine bottles, carved the roast, even laughed at a few jokes I didn't find remotely funny. If they expected me to sulk in the corner, they were sorely disappointed. At one point, Chase clapped me on the shoulder a little too hard. "Logan, you're a lucky man," he said, teeth flashing. I smiled back. "I know." Ashley's fork froze halfway to her mouth. She tried to cover it with a laugh, but the sound came out brittle, like glass about to crack. The conversation that wasn't. Later that night, after the last of the guests left, Ashley cornered me in the kitchen. "You've been different," she said carefully. "Different how?" I asked, rinsing a glass. "I don't know. Quieter. Like you're keeping something from me." I dried the glass slowly, set it in the cabinet. Then I turned and leaned against the counter. "Ashley, you've been keeping something from me for months. Maybe I'm just adapting." Her eyes widened a fraction. "What are you talking about?" I shrugged. "You'll figure it out." Then I walked out, leaving her standing there in her designer heels, clutching a wine glass like it was a lifeline. The mistake. Here's the thing about liars. They get sloppy. They think the cover story's airtight until they forget which version they told. Saturday afternoon, Ashley claimed she was meeting her friend Claire for lunch. Cute cover, except Claire had already posted a photo on Instagram, sitting at a farmer's market across town with her husband. So I checked the tracker. Sure enough, Ashley's car was parked at a boutique hotel. Room 412. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I sat back, sipped my coffee, and smiled. Timing, I reminded myself. Always timing. The storm breaks. That evening, she came home all dolled up, a little too much blush, a little too much perfume. I was sitting in the living room, reading, when she walked in. Hey, babe, she said lightly. I didn't look up. How's Claire? There was the crack. Subtle, but there. Her smile faltered just enough. She's good. We had fun. Good, I said, turning a page. Strange, though. She posted a photo this afternoon. Looked like she was with her husband. Silence. Heavy, crushing silence. Then, oh, well, she must have met me after. I closed the book gently, set it on the table, looked her dead in the eye. Ashley, if you're going to lie, at least put in the effort to make it believable. Her jaw tightened. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. She just stood there, clutching her purse like it could shield her from the truth. I let the silence stretch until she finally muttered, "You're imagining things." I smiled. Maybe. But here's the difference. I don't imagine twice. The private file. That night, while she pretended to sleep, I opened my laptop and reviewed the file again. Photos, GPS records, even a neat little timeline that would make any divorce lawyer salivate. I wasn't rushing this. No, I wanted her to think she still had the upper hand. Let her believe the crown was still on her head while the cracks spread underneath it. Because the thing about queens? When they fall, the whole board shakes. And I was ready for the quake. By Sunday morning, Ashley was a mess of nerves wrapped in silk pajamas. She burned the toast, spilled her coffee, and nearly snapped when the mailman rang the bell. She knew the silence wasn't normal. She knew the ground beneath her was shifting. And I knew. The fun part was only just beginning. She sat across from me at breakfast, chewing her toast so loudly I swear she was trying to drown out the silence. Her eyes flicked up every few seconds, searching my face for clues. "So," she said finally, her voice a little too casual, "what are you doing today?" I smiled into my coffee. "Just catching up on some paperwork." She blinked. Ashley hated paperwork. She hated the thought of me working on weekends because it meant she couldn't control the schedule. But this time, she just nodded, forcing a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Good. Good," she said. Inside, I laughed, because the paperwork I had in mind wasn't exactly for the office. The visit. By noon, she was going shopping. The tracker told me otherwise. Her car parked itself neatly at the same boutique hotel as yesterday, room 412. Predictable. That gave me 3 hours. Plenty of time. I drove across town to see a man named Daniel. Divorce attorney. The kind you don't find on billboards, but through whispered recommendations. Sharp. Efficient. Discreet. He slid the manila folder across his desk, flipping it open without asking. "You've been thorough," he said, eyebrows raised. "I'm a teacher," I replied. "I grade papers for a living. Evidence is second nature." He chuckled, scanning the GPS pings, the photos, the screenshots. "This is airtight. You'll walk out clean. No alimony, no messy split. You might even get the house." I leaned back. "I don't just want clean, Daniel. I want memorable." He looked up, studying my face. "Memorable how?" "You'll see," I said, planting seeds. When I got home, Ashley was already back, her hair freshly brushed, makeup retouched, the faintest whiff of Chase's cologne clinging to her cardigan. "How was shopping?" I asked, dropping my keys in the bowl by the door. She smiled brightly. "Great. Got a few things for work." "Perfect." I kissed her cheek lightly. "By the way, I was thinking, maybe we should have dinner with your parents next weekend. It's been a while." Her smile faltered just a fraction. Her parents adored me, the steady, dependable son-in-law who kept their daughter grounded. She knew if they saw me now, calm and unbothered, they'd smell the smoke on her even if she wore perfume by the gallon. Still, she recovered. "Sure, that sounds nice." And just like that, the seed was planted. The colleague. Monday morning, I did something bold. I stopped by her office. Ashley wasn't expecting me, of course. I walked in with a box of pastries, all smiles, playing the doting husband role to perfection. "Just thought I'd bring the team a little treat," I said cheerfully, setting the box down in the break room. Heads turned. Everyone smiled. Everyone except Ashley. And then came Chase. "Oh hey, Logan," he said, shaking my hand a little too firmly. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Thought I'd surprise her," I replied. Then I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice just enough for him to hear. "You know how it is. Gotta keep an eye on what's mine. His smile twitched. He laughed a little too loudly. Ashley's cheeks flushed red. I left a few minutes later, but the damage was done. Half the office now associated Chase and Ashley with Logan knows something. People gossip, and gossip spreads faster than perfume in a closed room. The financials. That night, while Ashley showered, I logged into our joint bank account. Years of trust meant she'd never bothered to change the password. And there it was. 2 hotel charges. Boutique, discreet, but not invisible. I didn't move the money. Not yet. But I printed the statements and added them to the folder. Another brick in the wall. When she came out of the bathroom, towel around her shoulders, she smiled. Thinking about going away for a weekend. Just the 2 of us. I looked up from my book. Sure. Let's plan it. She froze, expecting me to resist. But I didn't. I gave her what she least expected, agreement. Because nothing makes a cheater more paranoid than a spouse who suddenly stops resisting. The friend. Wednesday, I got a text from her friend Claire. The real Claire. Logan, I don't know what's going on, but Ashley asked me to cover for her again. Just thought you should know. I smiled, typed back a simple reply. Thanks. Don't worry. I'm aware. Claire didn't respond, but I knew she'd read between the lines. Another seed planted. Another thread tugged. The slip. Thursday evening, Ashley came home frazzled. She dropped her purse, kicked off her heels, and poured herself a glass of wine like she was trying to drown nerves instead of thirst. Long day? I asked. Ugh, yes. Meetings all day? Chase was a nightmare. I tilted my head. Funny. I thought Chase was more of a dream to you. Her glass froze halfway to her lips. Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled gently. Nothing. Just an observation. She didn't finish the wine. She went straight upstairs instead. The setup. By Friday, the board was ready. The pieces in place. All I needed was the right moment to move. So I called her parents. Invited them for dinner Sunday night. Told them Ashley had been working so hard, and she deserved a little family time. They loved the idea. When I told Ashley, she nearly dropped her phone. This Sunday. Yeah, I said with a smile. I already told them we'd cook. They're excited. Her lips twitched into a smile that looked more like a grimace. Great. Can't wait. And in that moment, I knew. She was dreading Sunday more than I was looking forward to it. The calm before. Saturday night, she tried. She really did. Cooked my favorite dinner. Wore that red dress she hadn't touched in months. Even put on the perfume I'd bought her years ago, like she could erase the traces of Chase with one spritz. She leaned across the table, her eyes soft. Logan, we've had our rough patches, but I want us to get back to us. I reached across, took her hand gently. I want that too. And I meant it, just not in the way she thought. Because tomorrow night, at our dinner table, in front of her parents, the curtain was finally going to rise. And Ashley? She had no idea what role she was about to play. If you've never hosted a dinner while holding enough evidence to end a marriage, let me tell you, it's a peculiar kind of calm. Like standing on the shore before a hurricane, knowing you're the only one with an umbrella. Sunday evening arrived, and I set the table with a precision that would have made Martha Stewart weep. Polished silverware, neatly folded napkins, the good china we'd received at our wedding and used maybe twice since. Even lit the fancy candles Ashley liked, but never remembered to dust. She floated around the kitchen in a cream dress, smiling too wide, her laugh a half step too sharp. She was nervous, and when Ashley got nervous, she overcompensated. By 6 sharp, her parents knocked. Harold and Judith. Sweet people, really. They thought their daughter hung the moon. Logan, Judith exclaimed, hugging me tightly. Oh, we've missed you too. I smiled. Glad you're here. We've got plenty to catch up on. Ashley emerged, beaming. Mom. Dad. Her dad gave her the kind of hug only a father can give his little girl. I watched her shoulders relax, just for a second, like she thought the night was safe. She had no idea. Small talk and tension. Dinner started with harmless chatter. Judith complimented the roast. Harold asked about my work. Ashley filled every silence with a story about promotions, friends, funny little office antics. She never mentioned Chase by name. I noticed. So did Daniel, my lawyer, who was sitting at his office downtown, phone on silent, waiting for my call if things went sideways. I sat there, nodding, smiling, cutting my meat with care. The calmest man in the room. So, Logan, Harold said at one point, how's everything been lately? Ashley shot me a glance. A warning. A plea. I dabbed my mouth with a napkin. Honestly, Harold, everything's been enlightening. Ashley's smile tightened like a bowstring. He's just been stressed with work, she added quickly. Not stressed, I corrected gently. Just observant. Judith tilted her head. Observant. Ashley let out a nervous laugh. Logan's been reading too many mystery novels lately. He thinks he's Sherlock Holmes. I smiled. Not Holmes. Just a husband paying attention. The silence that followed was heavy. Ashley picked up her wine glass like it was armor. The slip. Halfway through dessert, Judith excused herself to check the oven, and Harold went to help her. That left just Ashley and me. She leaned in, her voice low, sharp. What are you doing? I set my fork down, folded my hands. Dinner. Don't play games, Logan. I raised an eyebrow. Funny. I thought you were the one playing games. Her eyes darted toward the kitchen, then back to me. If you say one word. I chuckled softly. Relax. I'm not saying a word. Not yet. Her jaw clenched. You wouldn't dare humiliate me in front of my parents. I leaned forward, meeting her eyes. Ashley, you've been humiliating yourself for months. I'm just the one holding the mirror. She flinched, just slightly, before forcing a smile as her parents returned. The story. Judith poured coffee while Harold complimented the pie. I leaned back in my chair, sipping mine slowly. Then, casually, I said, you know, I've been meaning to tell you both a story. Ashley's fork froze midair. Oh, Judith asked, smiling. What about? I glanced at Ashley. About honesty, and the funny ways it shows itself. Ashley's eyes widened. Logan, maybe now isn't. No, it's fine, I said smoothly. It's just a story. And then I told it. Not outright, of course. I spoke in parables, wrapped in humor. About a man who trusted too much. About a woman who thought her secrets were safe because she mistook silence for ignorance. About how lies always leave a paper trail, no matter how careful the liar thinks she is. Harold listened intently. Judith frowned, sensing the edge beneath my words. Ashley. She sat stiff as a statue, her wine glass trembling just enough to spill a drop onto the tablecloth. When I finished, I smiled. Funny story, right? Judith forced a laugh. Quite unusual. Ashley cleared her throat. Logan's always had a flair for the dramatic. I looked right at her. Sometimes the truth feels dramatic when you're not ready to face it. The call. After dessert, while Ashley walked her parents to the car, I slipped into the study. Pulled out my phone. Daniel, I said quietly. Everything's set. File the papers tomorrow. Are you sure? I smiled. Never been surer. By the time I rejoined Ashley, she was closing the door. Her smile was plastered on so tight it looked painful. They loved dinner, she said, voice trembling. Good, I replied calmly. Because they'll need the memory when everything else changes. Her face paled. What did you do? Nothing yet, I said, brushing past her. But tomorrow? That's when the curtain really rises. The night before. She followed me upstairs like a shadow. Logan, wait. We can fix this. I turned, meeting her eyes. Fix what, Ashley? Her lips parted, but no words came out. Because saying it out loud would make it real. Instead, she whispered, please. For the first time in months, I let my smile fade. Ashley, the difference between you and me is simple. You thought you were playing chess, but I already finished the game before you moved your first piece. She stood there, stunned, as I walked into the bedroom. And as I closed the door behind me, I knew she finally realized. Tomorrow, the life she thought she controlled was going to be rewritten. By me. Tomorrow would be the day she'd stop underestimating me. And the day she'd finally learn what it feels like to be on the wrong side of a plan you never saw coming. Monday morning, Ashley left early, claiming she had a presentation. I watched her drive away, then opened my laptop. The tracker pinged exactly where I expected, that boutique hotel. Room 412. Same routine. Same arrogance. I smiled. Predictability is the downfall of every liar. I called Daniel, my lawyer. File the papers, I said, and send her the courtesy copy. Today. Right now. By noon, Ashley had a neatly typed envelope sitting in her inbox. I knew because my phone buzzed less than 10 minutes later. Her text, what did you do? I didn't reply. Silence is louder than any argument. When she came home that night, she was pale, eyes red from crying, though her makeup was applied like she was auditioning for Everything's Fine. She slammed the envelope on the counter. You filed for divorce? Just like that. I poured myself a glass of water, calm as a monk. Not just like that. More like, after months of watching you practice deceit like it was a hobby. Her voice cracked. Logan, don't. I raised a hand. Don't feed me excuses. Don't blame work stress or feeling neglected or any of the rehearsed lines you've been practicing with him. Her jaw clenched. You don't understand. I chuckled. Ashley, I understand more than you think. I know about the hotel, the charges, the texts, the perfume, the nights you said you were with Claire when she was posting pictures across town. She froze. The blood drained from her face. See, Ashley, the thing about lying? You're terrible at it. She whispered. So that's it? You're just walking away? I leaned forward, my smile sharp. Walking? No. Planning. Friday night, I hosted a dinner party. My idea. Old friends, a few neighbors, her parents again. Ashley looked confused, but too scared to argue. Everyone was laughing, wine flowing, food passed around. I played the perfect host. Charming, relaxed, the kind of man people whispered about later, saying, he's handling this so gracefully. Halfway through the evening, I stood up, tapped my glass, and said, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. It means a lot. Ashley smiled nervously, squeezing my hand under the table. And since honesty is the best policy, I continued, I think it's time to share some news. Her hand went limp. I paused, scanning the room. Ashley and I are separating. Gasps. Judith's fork clattered against her plate. Harold stared like he'd misheard. Ashley's lips trembled. Logan. I held up a hand. No. Let's not make a scene. It's amicable. I smiled warmly at the room. Sometimes people grow apart. Sometimes life takes turns we don't expect. But I want everyone to know, I'll be just fine. And then I sat down, leaving Ashley to choke on the silence. What I didn't mention was the file I'd mailed earlier that day, to her parents, to Chase's boss, and to a few mutual friends who prided themselves on knowing everything. Each envelope contained the photos, the receipts, the proof. The performance ended the second the mail arrived. A week later, Ashley showed up at the house, looking like a storm that had lost its thunder. Logan, she whispered at the door, we need to talk. I stepped aside. She walked in, clutching a folder. I can't believe you embarrassed me like that. In front of my parents, my friends, my coworkers. You ruined me. I raised an eyebrow. Ashley, I didn't ruin you. I just handed everyone the brush. You painted the picture yourself. Her eyes glistened. So what now? You get the house, the sympathy, and I'm just what? The villain. I smiled. No, you're the lesson. She blinked. The lesson? I leaned in, lowering my voice. Every person at that table, every friend who opened that envelope, every colleague whispering behind your back, they all know the truth now. And you'll spend the rest of your life rebuilding a reputation that never should have cracked in the first place. Her lips trembled. You wanted revenge. I stood tall. No, I wanted clarity. Revenge was just the bonus. She turned toward the door, shoulders slumped, voice barely audible. You'll regret this. I chuckled softly. Ashley, regret is for people who lose. And if you haven't noticed, I gestured around the house, calm and steady. I already won. The door closed behind her, and for the first time in months, the silence in my home wasn't heavy. It was peaceful, because the game was over. And I hadn't just survived, I'd scripted the ending.